in between this spline and this spline, in there is a oil seal. I'm not sure I even want to mess with that. I think what I'm going to do is take some air, blow all this grease off that I put on here. So after I clean this all off, I'll be able to see if oil is coming out from in here where that new oil seal is, or whether it's coming out from here where the old oil seal is that I don't want to replace. Greetings, thanks for joining me again today. I'm going to discuss with you the brake job that I did on the right side of the case 580C. In doing so, I discovered that there was a seal that was leaking on a plate that is directly sandwiched in between the differential and the brake housing. That particular plate holds the oil seal to keep the differential fluid from getting into the brake housing area. And because that seal had failed, that entire brake housing and brake parts were coated full of a black sludge. I'll show that to you here. And so that needed to be corrected before I put these brakes all back together. So today's video is going to be about changing that seal. Now, because I've already done this, I'm going to kind of go over it with you just to show you what I did in the event that you want to change a seal on the right side of the case 580C. I should say though that you're going to have to watch the brake video that I did in order to get to this particular seal. So you have to disassemble that brake housing, and then once you do that, you'll have the seal and you can go ahead and replace it at that point. So let's get started with that. The very first thing I want to show you is that there are two of these shims that are sandwiched in between this particular part of this, I'll call it a plate. So this part here goes into the differential side, and this part here is the part that the brake housing goes onto. So these two plates, these shims, are sandwiched in between. And in order to get, I'm going to take those off so I don't ruin them. But in order to get this particular plate off, there is a secret nut, or actually a secret bolt, that goes on here like this that you will not be able to see. This one here, I can tell you, it has been removed before. It's all chewed up, so it must have been in there pretty tight, and someone actually, got it out of there. But after taking off all these bolts and the brake housing, you're left with a flat surface here, and because you can only look at it from this side, you really can't see that there's this, let's call it a screw. There's a screw there that actually fits in there. Now, the screw that I was dealing with, I thought would end up having to be wrenched out of there somehow. So I put this screwdriver on there, and really you can't see it very much. It's sitting up vertically. And then this particular wrench, this screwdriver has a wrench adaptation to it. So I was planning on having to wrench it out with this as I pushed hard onto the screw. Didn't have to do that. I just ended up putting that on there and it turned right out. But this is essential. I was actually prying on this plate with a screwdriver to try to get this pushed out when I discovered this. So that's something that you need to know about. Then once it's out of there, what I did was I took a screwdriver and I just put it on this seal that's in here. It goes out this way, so it gets pushed out this way and it gets put back in this way. So I just used a screwdriver. I didn't worry about damaging it. Not that I wanted to damage any of this, but I didn't care about damaging the seal. I just popped that seal right out of there. Then after it was all cleaned up, I put the seal kind of level back in there, and then I used this bolt. And what I did is I put it on top of the seal, and I just tapped around and got it started. And then what I would do is I would look at this side and see, is it in there level? In other words, am I hammering too much on one side and not enough on the other? If I was, I'd flip it back over, and then I'd go to the high side and tap it back down. This particular bolt, I was able to actually tap it all the way down to the metal that's in here. So this part of it right in here, this is the casting. So this part, that top of that seal is even with that, because this particular bolt was able to slide all the way around in there and get right on top of that casting, on top of that metal. So that's how I got that seal in there. And there is one more seal that more than likely, there is one more seal that needs to go in somewhere, and this is it. And I'm going to be calling the person that I got this from. His name is Dale Wise, or Dale Weiss, W-I-E-S-S, Dale Weiss maybe, and he's from Tractor Stuff Company. I'm not getting paid by him, no endorsements, no free parts, never will take a free part from anyone, like anyone at all. So my point is that I'm giving him credit because he's very good in helping out. If you need a part for something, he's the guy to go to, and I'll put his website page up here so that you can see that. But again, this is a seal that needs to go on somewhere. I think it's on the gear spline, but I can't see any place where it needs to go. So I'll be giving him a call this morning. So now that you've seen how that came off of the tractor, I did want to say also that you have to drain the differential fluid first. There's a nut that I didn't see right away. It is directly in the center of the differential, more towards the back. It's obscured. If you're just laying under there in the middle of the tractor trying to find it, you really wouldn't be able to see it. You have to kind of get your head around the back side of the tractor and you'll see that nut. It's a 1-inch nut. I took that out, drained out that fluid. I'll show you a picture of that here. That fluid is like a pinkish white. It looks like it's been mixed with water. It's very pasty, and it's overfilled. There were more than 5 gallons of fluid in that differential, and the differential is only supposed to hold 5 gallons of GL4 fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the brakes in another video, and then I'm going to install this back on the tractor, and when I do that, I'll put that on this video so that you'll be able to see that this is being reinstalled. I'm sorry, I failed to point out one more thing about this particular seal on this plate. There was an O-ring that came with the kit that I bought. There was 2 seals. It was the inner one and this O-ring. That also got put on here, hopefully to prevent oil from getting into the brake housing. So this will get installed first. Then after this gets put back on the differential, then the brake housing will go on. And then after the brake housing, then this will go back on. Okay, so it's very difficult for me to see this camera, but I'm going to try to point this out for you. Hopefully I'll get this shot right. In between this spline and this spline, in there is a oil seal. Now, this is the first time I'm ever doing this, putting this camera up here, but I don't even know if you can see it. I'm trying to do the best I can with the camera, but it's in between these two. So I'm not sure I even want to mess with that. I think what I'm going to do is take some air, blow all this grease off that I put on here. The reason I put the grease on there was because I didn't want to ruin the other oil seal that I did put on this plate right here. This is the plate that I'm talking about right here, this heavy duty plate. Those spacers are in here. So I put these on here to hold this plate on here. These are all ratcheted down pretty good, And then up on top, because this bolt is so long, I ended up cutting a piece of small 1/2-inch pipe, black iron pipe, just to get those on there nice and tight. So this plate's not going anywhere. So after I clean this all off, I'll be able to see if oil is coming out from in here where that new oil seal is, or whether it's coming out from here where the old oil seal is that I don't want to replace. So now that that's as clear as mud, I hope that we'll be able to check this out here in a little while and see how it all turned out. I drove the loader about 1/4 of a mile in this current configuration, and this is what it looked like afterwards. That seal I replaced on the plate was not leaking at all. Neither was the inner seal between the two splines. That tells me the seal I replaced was the worn out one. This was the only way I could determine that before reinstalling the brake housing and differential lock. Thanks for watching. If you're interested, please look for the next video on reinstalling the right brake parts. Be safe and be blessed.